Hi everybody, Carissa here with Inky Fairy Designs, and today I'm going to be doing some watercoloring with the Derwent Inktense Pencils. Now I am using the Inktense set 36, but I also have purchased some individually, so I'm not sure if all of the colors I'm using come in this set or if some I purchased individually. I'm going to be using these adorable new stamps by the Greeting Farm. I am using the stamp set Tweety Pie as well as the matching dies for my project today. And to do my stamping on, I'm using the Canson hot pressed 140-pound watercolor paper. You're also going to want to have some watercolor brushes. The brushes that I'm using are the Winsor & Newton Series 7 Sable brushes. I think I stick with the size 1 throughout my coloring. I'm using some Memento ink in Toffee Crunch. Originally, I chose this ink because it is water-based, and I was kind of going to go for a no-line watercoloring technique, but this ink actually does become not waterproof, but water it resists the water, so it doesn't fade away, or it doesn't like blend into my coloring like I thought it would. So if I tried this technique again, or when I do try this technique again, I would probably stamp it twice so that I got a lighter line with the Memento ink, and then it would give me more of the effect of the no lines that I was going for. But I really liked how the lines became more subtle, and it really gave a soft look to my coloring and the image itself. So I went with it, and I was really happy with the outcome. Now for the coloring, I did speed up the video for time purposes. This video is actually quite long, and so I do hope that you enjoy it and stick with me to the end. I wanted to show you each step of the coloring and how I use the Derwent Inktense pencils when I am watercoloring. There are a lot of ways, I'm sure, to use these pencils, and this is just the way that I have been using them and find that they work for me. So I laid down a wash of the teal green 1300. I'm going to try and tell you the colors as I go, but if I don't, I have all of the colors listed in the YouTube description below, as well as on my blog. So you'll see here that I do a combination of ways to lay down my color. Sometimes I will draw on the color with the pencil itself, kind of lay down that color along the shadow areas. You can see how I am doing that on the belly of the bird right there with the red violet 0610. And I'm doing the same thing here on the girl bird, because I'm just using the same colors kind of opposite on each bird to keep it simple. And then I will come in with my clean brush with some clean water, and I will draw it, use my brush along that line, activate the ink, and pull it up into my image. You can see it really well here on the coloring that I'm doing right here. And you'll see that I clean my brush often because I want to make sure that the water that I'm pulling in is nice and clean. I don't want to take away any of the dimension or shading. Now this is another way to lay down color, is I will take my wet brush to the pencil itself. I do it mostly off screen, but you saw me do it just a minute ago. And I can pull some of that color off directly from the pencil using my brush and bring it onto my image. So you can see that I get a more intense color when I do that. And it just helps me to soften up perhaps the line if it was too harsh from what I colored onto the image itself with the pencil. I can bring in some of that color and soften it and bring it further into the image to give that depth and dimension. One of the great things about the Inktense pencils, if you haven't used them or you've been curious about them for watercoloring, is when they dry, so after you have laid down your color and your water, once it has dried, they become permanent. So it's not going to reactivate if you lay another color on top. And that's how I was able to get the really beautiful blending between the yellow and the purple. Because if I were to put them down using traditional watercolors, they may not blend. They might become a little bit murky just because of the color, the way the colors react with each other when you're looking at the color wheel. You want to be careful about what colors you're laying down next to each other on top of each other. And because of the Inktense pencils and the properties that they dry and they're not going to reactivate, you can add these opposite colors and they actually kind of just work well together. They're just going to lay on top of each other. So I really like how that turned out. Okay, so now I moved on to coloring the branch stamped image, and I've used a combination of Willow 1900 and Bark 2000, and I drew on the color with the Willow, and then here you can see again how I'm adding that color going directly from the pencil using my brush and just blending that in and getting some more color and more dimension and depth and shading in my image. So those are really the two ways that I use the Inktense pencils. I'll first go in and I will outline the image here using the pencil direct to the paper, and I will just kind of stay where I want my deepest shadow, so it's kind of like where I'm mapping out where my shading would be. And I know when I draw the color out, my highlights will be in the area that I didn't lay down color. And so here I come in with a clean water brush and activate the Inktense pencils on my stamped image and then draw it up into the image to create that shading. And each time I go to a new leaf or to a new part of an image, I will clean off my brush, get some fresh water, and add that and start coloring that next section. And so there's the second way that I use the Inktense pencils, is I use a damp brush, pick up the color directly from my pencil, and add it to my image. So now here are the dies that match the stamp set. They are available separately, so you can get them, and I think they're really great to use for fussy cutting, and I wanted to show you how I separate my dies using a wire cutter. And then one thing I really love about having the open steel cut dies is that I can do all of my stamping and coloring beforehand, and then I can line up the die and see through right where the image will be and kind of line that up, and then it's going to perfectly cut out a little border, a little white border around your image, and it'll be perfectly even all around. So I'm just running that, and I used a piece of washi tape to hold them into place as I ran it through my die cutting machine, and here you'll see how awesome they cut out. And I really love that I can do all of my stamping and coloring beforehand. Just makes it easier for me to have that larger area to kind of turn and move while I'm coloring, and then be able to die cut it once I'm done. So now we're going to go ahead, and I thought I would share how I created my project today. I am pretty obsessed with these little embroidery hoops, except I don't embroider at all. I'm using them always in my paper crafting or mixed media projects. And I thought this size is such a cute size. It's a 3x3 embroidery hoop. So it's a really tiny size to work with and perfect for these smaller stamped images. I thought they would be cute to use. I actually picked them up originally to use to create some ornaments, and I am finding that I just like using them to create different types of wall decor. So I put some paper, it's a thinner paper of that kind of music design on the back and just kind of scrunched it up and folded it, and it took a little bit to manipulate it to fit into the embroidery hoop, but I find if you have some thin papers it works really well. And then I just have this Kaisercraft Ephemera pack, and it had some really cute die cuts in it, and I thought I would use it to build a little scene because there was like a little window shutter and some flower branches, and I thought that went well with the stamped image of the birds and the branch. So I'm using some 450 adhesive by Helmar to attach all of the pieces that I am laying down flat on my piece here. And so it takes a little bit, and then I realized I could just turn it over and be able to rub it and get a really nice adhesive there. And so I'm going to just tuck in the flowers behind the window, which I kind of forgot, but I was able to tuck it or lift it up just a little bit and kind of tuck that in between. And I love how some of my pieces go outside of the embroidery hoop. I think it just adds some more dimension and interest to the final project. And so now I'm going to adhere the branch that we stamped and colored and cut out right underneath that little window piece. And now that I know that I can turn it over and get a good adhering of my everything, I do that. And so I love this little die tag that says, "We don't remember days, we remember moments." I just thought that was super cute and went well with these little birds and little scene, and something that I kind of wanted to have around to remind myself. So I'm just adhering that. I added some twine to the top of the tag. I inked all of the edges of the die cut pieces with some Memento ink in Toffee Crunch. And then to adhere the birds, I wanted them to have some more dimension. But as this is more of a kind of home decor type of piece, I wanted to use something with a little bit more hold, and so I'm using these scrap dots by Helmar. I love that it can give any type of lift, as much or as little as you want, depending on how far you push it down and leave it. So I think it works really well for this type of project. So I'm just adding those on top, getting them where I like it, and I'm pretty happy with it, but I think it needs just a little bit more. And so I decided to pull out some sequins and add that to my project. So I pulled out some sequins, just some clear sequins, and then I saved you the heartache of me deciding whether I wanted to use purple or green, and I ended up going with these gold sequins that I have in my stash. And to adhere them to my project, like I said, since it's kind of a home decor type piece, I wanted it to have a bit of a more better seal, and so I used the multi-matte medium by Ranger. And so I put a little dot on my scrap mat to the side, and I'm just lifting up each sequin with my tweezers and putting a little bit of that adhesive, kind of running the sequin into that, and bringing it back to my project and then pushing it down so that it would be secure. I hope you enjoyed this video and how I share how I use the Derwent Inktense pencils to watercolor my stamped images. All of the products will be listed on my blog at www.inkyfairydesigns.com. And again, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.